So there's actually speaking roles in this one, which you may not think because it's a poem. But there's the voice of the raven, and there's the voice of the speaker when he says words aloud. So who would like to be the voice of the narrator? Allison. Yay. Who wants to be the raven? Marat?
Marat.
Yeah, yes. I think so.
No, we all want you.
I think you've gotten it. It's short. There's not a lot of context needed. We're just going to jump in, I think. When I have taught Edgar Allan Poe, I've shown The Simpsons, who did a really good version of The Raven. They basically read aloud the entire poem and act it out. And it's great because it really helps you kind of visualize it. So later on, if you wanted to look that up, that would be kind of cool. I think it's great. Homer Simpson running around getting like attacked by a raven who's played by Bart.
That's so good.
All right, so The Raven, Edgar Allan Poe. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door.
"'Tis some visitor,"
I muttered,
tapping at my chamber door. "Only this and nothing more."
Ah, distinctly I remember it was in the bleak December, and every separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here forevermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now to still the beating of my heart I stood repeating,
"'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. Some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. This is it and nothing more."
Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer.
"Sir,"
said I,
"or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore. But the fact is I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you."
Here I opened wide the door. Darkness there, and nothing more. Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word,
"Lenore?"
This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word, "Lenore." Merely this, and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning, soon again I heard a tapping, somewhat louder than before.
"Surely,"
said I,
"surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see then where thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind and nothing more."
Open here I flung the shutter, when, with many a flirt and flutter, in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with mien of lord or lady perched above my chamber door, perched upon a bust of Pallas just above my chamber door, perched and sat and nothing more. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore.
"Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou,"
I said,
"art sure no craven, ghastly grim and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what light thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore."
Quoth the raven,
"Nevermore."
Much I marveled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculptured bust above his chamber door, with such name as
Nevermore.
But the raven, sitting lonely on the placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing farther than he uttered, not a feather than he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered,
"Other friends have flown before. On the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before."
Then the bird said,
"Nevermore."
Startled at the stillness broken by reply so aptly spoken,
"Doubtless,"
said I,
"what it utters is its only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master, whom unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster, till his songs one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore, of never, nevermore."
But the raven, still beguiling all my fancy into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. Then upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking. This I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining on the cushion's velvet lining that the lamplight gloated o'er. But whose velvet violet lining with the lamplight gloating o'er she shall press, nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer, swung by seraphim whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor.
Wretch,
I cried,
thy God hath lent thee, by these angels he hath sent thee, respite and nepenthe from thy memories of Lenore. Quaff, oh quaff this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore.
Quoth the raven.
Nevermore.
Prophet,
Said I,
thing of evil, prophet still if bird or devil, whether tempter sent or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore. Desolate, yet all undaunted, on this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore. Is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore.
Quoth the raven.
Nevermore.
Prophet,
Said I,
thing of evil, prophet still if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore. Tell this soul with sorrow laden, if, within the distant Aiden, it shall clasp a sainted maiden whom the angels named Lenore. Clasp a rare and radiant maiden whom the angels named Lenore.
Quoth the raven.
Nevermore.
Be that word our sign of parting, bird or fiend.
I shrieked, upstarting.
Get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart and take thy form from off my door.
Quoth the raven.
Nevermore.
And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door, and his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor. And my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore.
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 So this person
yeah.
is missing Lenore, who seems to be their partner or wife, who has died. And then the raven comes in and spooks them by talking about how he will never more see Lenore ever again. And we on Classics and Chill know that the bust of Pallas is a bust of
Athena.
Yes.
Yes, Classics and Chill. Let's go.
We learned things.
I think we just aced the pop quiz.
Dude, we did it. Let's go. Boom. This whole bust thing. Why Pallas? Was it because Athena was a headache of Zeus?
So you're referring to how Athena came out of Zeus's head?
Yeah, it's a headache. It was just like a raging headache and just popped out. And it was like, well, that sucks.
Could be. I think that could be a solution. I think more so it's his library, and Athena is the goddess of wisdom.
That's some Occam's razor business. That makes sense. That's a lot easy. I like that.
Yeah, as for like significance in the poem, more than just like why is she in this setting?
I have an idea.
Yeah.
Athena is like rational thought, and this raven is something like doubt or like a cloud of darkness over that rational thought, and it's literally sitting right on top of his head, and it's something that he can't shake.
I like that.
So
that is
I
cool.
like that. From the poem, it's evident. I don't think it says much, but this guy gives me classics vibes. He's into the classics, I feel.
He's reading Forgotten Lore.
He's chill.
Yeah.
He's reading Forgotten Lore, which is like clearly not forgotten if he's reading it, but he's reading it, so like pretty gothic, classic vibe. So this man would probably have a bust of Pallas in his room, or maybe in his bathroom somewhere. So actually, going off what Colin's saying, it is really cool that like he is standing right on top of Athena, who's supposed to be the rational one, because he does try to severely rationalized the presence of this crow as like, oh, someone's tapping, oh, there's the wind, oh, there's this. And the raven is above his rationality because he did not expect a raven in any sense, let alone raven be talking. So it does kind of feed into his psychology. Like Pallet was his previous state, this raven is his current state almost.
I mean, I think that this is partially like a big metaphor for grief. One of the 5 stages of grief is denial and denying the truth. Like, you know that they're dead, but you can't quite believe it. And so that could kind of be reflected here. Like, I know that this raven isn't talking to me. Like, I know that Lenore is not in my hallway, but I think they might be anyway. And like, you have to act on that anyway, even though it's not rational.
There's actually, there was one thing that I wanted to bring up. Like, what stage of grief would we say he's in? I mean, I'm not sure if the 5 stages of grief is like, there are 5 stages, boom. But yeah, they're a good guideline. And there's denial, negotiation, anger, depression, and acceptance. Whatever. Yeah. I think that was it. Which stage would we argue that he's in?
Well, I would preface by saying that I don't think that this was a thing when Edgar Allan Poe was alive. Not that we can't apply it, but I don't think it would be something that he had in his head.
Probably not.
And also, y'all psychologists can refute this if it's not true, but I think that they can happen out of order and sometimes at the same time. Yeah. Absolutely. So I think that like denial is what I see.
Yeah, I would say that a lot of them are present in the poem because he's like yelling at the raven, get out of here. I feel like there could be some sort of negotiation with this raven. But the other thing that I noticed was that there's a line, other friends have flown before. So I sort of am reading that as like, if the raven is a state of mind, the narrator is saying, oh, other emotions have passed me before, this grief will also pass. And the raven is just sticking around, I guess.
Does that make sense to me? Especially like, there's a strict negotiation of just even the presence of the raven to begin with. That's because there was a sense of denial. When Raven was there was negotiation, but a part of him still believed, which like, I like this reflection of grief because I don't like the 5 stages of grief for this reason, because it's treated like a scalar thing where like, oh, you achieved negotiation, good job, let's get angry now. Like, that makes no sense. Like, I hate that look on psychology. And this poem shows a really good sense of it, where like, if we had to put in that scale, he was fully depressed in the beginning, just the way he described, he was just like sitting idly, thinking, pondering, not sleeping. And then when he heard the noise, he immediately shifted to either denial or like some, earlier stage, just because the emotional experience kind of brought up these memories. And then he had to go through all these very quickly with the raven for whatever reason. And I feel like it's a good reflection of how grief is something that is lifelong, and there's really no boom, done with grief, but just adaptive mechanisms. And this shows really good how it can strike back in such a bizarre and unnecessary moment without expectations or even relevance, as long as it's on your mind.
I feel like, because he's dead at the end, right? Like it says he's like a shadow floating on the floor. In the beginning, when it says something about it was in bleak December, which I feel like is a metaphor for dying. And then it's talking about dying embers. So I feel like maybe he's dying, and like as he's recognizes that he's dying, he's like encountering his grief again and wondering if he's going to see his love in death. And then this raven swoops and is like, nope, sorry.
Ooh, I really like that reading. That's a really cool idea. That could also kind of be like, oh, he's hallucinating, like how they say that you do, like right before you die. Like, so he's like hearing the raven, even though it's not even, maybe there's not even a raven. And then, yeah, you're right. In the last stanza, it's kind of like his soul from that shadow shall never be lifted. I think that could definitely be literal. I think it could also be metaphorical in the way that Marat's taking it. Like you never get over grief entirely. So like you can be under the influence of the raven forever. But I like your reading of it being like he's literally never leaving the raven shadow because he just dies. And that would be so Edgar Allan Poe to just die of.
So Edgar Allan Poe.
Die of grief.
Die of grief while arguing with a raven.
That's like the most Poe thing ever.
That is really, really cool. I like that. And I was like looking up, and some people did argue that like this was also just an entire dream. the whole thing was a dream, and he actually like fell asleep in the beginning, but had like a weird like before sleep, pre-sleep little snack dream of this.
That could certainly be true. I think like it was all a dream / this person is hallucinating the whole thing / making it up is like, you could apply that to literally anything, and it's cool, but also like it doesn't really
Cool.
like
No.
this never happened anyway. It's a fake poem, like it's a fictional story. So like making it another layer of fake.
Just need more layers.
Yeah, like there's a common.
Had it right, bro.
There was a common fan theory that like Harry Potter never happened. He hallucinated the whole thing while in the cupboard under the stairs, like just as an escape. And it's like, that's cool, I guess, but also like,
yeah, it's like cool.
what do I do with that piece of information?
Or it happened, and it's cooler. Like,
yeah.
How about we just say it happened? It's way better.
So it's like it's a way to interpret a story. It's just not very interesting.
Entirely.
Yeah.
Poe really likes sounds, repetitive sounds, driving people crazy. The bells, 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 as we learned last time, or the beating of his hideous heart, the clock in the Red Death.
And then here with the Nevermore.
And also just like
Nevermore. Every what do you call it? Do you call those stanzas? He's like
in a poem there's stanzas. Yeah,
they're all ending in or. Like the last three lines always end in or, which like kind of like the bells thing. You're like or, and it's rhymes with Lenore, so it really does show like how obsessed he is. Within the poem, all we can hear is or, Lenore, or.
Yeah, and I think that is also like tying into this like inescapable quality, because like your ear is begging for a different sound. Like it gets annoying and like droning because you're like, please say something else. And he's like, no. Yeah, like the way that you would illustrate that would be A, B, A, B, B, B. Just like more of that form stuff that I think people focus too much on, but it's definitely prevalent here.
In this one, it actually serves a purpose.
Yeah.
Rather than just being like, this is how people write. It's like, nah, dude. It's like, this is just sound.
The internal rhymes are cool too, because it's like, in the second stanza, there's morrow and sorrow. Remember, dying ember. So there's a lot of like internal stuff going on, which has that really cool rhythm when you read it.
Oh, the whole thing just reads wonderfully.
There's a lot of like Greek gods and then like Christian spirituality, like intermixing.
Yeah, there's seraphims and everything.
Yeah, angels.
Plutonian, I guess, would be like Pluto is a Roman god
of the underworld.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there were any prophets that were birds in the Bible.
Let me correct you.
Yeah.
I actually have no idea. Let me see. Bird prophet, let's get it.
But birds were often messengers of the gods in Greek mythology. Like Pallas Athena had owls and Zeus had eagles. I don't think anyone had ravens. But maybe that could be like if Hades had a bird, it would be probably a raven, because ravens were symbols of death. So, that does make sense. He comes out of the night's Plutonian shore. So perhaps it's a messenger of Pluto / Hades.
Odin had ravens.
The only bird messenger prophet I think of in the Bible is the dove, which is used when Noah is on the ark. The dove gets sent out and brings back an olive branch, which says, hey, there's land now. And also there's a dove in the New Testament that like lands on Jesus, and that's basically God saying, this is my son, listen to him.
It's my son. That's my boy.
But like doves are white, ravens are black. Maybe it's like a reversal of that. Maybe it's like doves bringing peace, ravens bringing you this headache forevermore.
And
forevermore.
The dove showed that the symbol of peace through what?
It came back with an olive branch in its mouth.
Thought so.
There's land out there. There's olives.
There's olives.
It's dandy there, dude. They're all fresh.
The most peaceful, food item, olives.
Clearly.
Absolutely.
No one would ever have a war over
No
those.
one dares brine them without supervision. It's a
The
wonderful.
opposite of war. The opposite of war is olives.
Yes. Yes. Actually, is that story why the symbol of peace is a dove carrying a branch?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't know it came from that story. That's cool.
And it's also why the symbol of the rainbow means that God will never flood the earth.
Oh, well then.
Yeah, it's the true homosexual agenda.
Honestly,
Floods.
based on the Bible.
I feel like there's a descent into madness, which is also seems to be a theme with Poe. Like at one point, he's like, "Let me pull up a chair and talk to this bird. What are you saying?" At one point, he's like, "No, it's just that this bird has like learned one word and it's nevermore. It's not actually talking to me. I think." Yes. Okay. So then, like the seraphim, like he talks about angels sending the raven, and it's telling him like to rest and drink nepenthe, which is like a balm, I guess, that helps, or a drug that helps him like forget Lenore. So then he tries to forget, and then he says, "Raven, you evil raven, like, is there a balm in Gilead? Is there a cure?" And the raven says, "Nevermore."
Nevermore.
And so he's basically just becoming more and more desperate. Like, first he's like, "Let me sit with you and hear you." Then he's like, "All right, you're an angel. All right, you're a devil. All right, get out of my house."
Get out of my house.
No, I'm staying here forever.
The intensity is done so right. Okay, let me see. Like, what kind of drug could this be? What are we even talking about that he wants to use? Tropical pitcher plant? Is that what it's called?
That's the common name.
Pitcher plants, drug, baby. Well, let me see. What was it?
So maybe that's what they named it. So that pitcher plant is actually, they grow around here. I saw them at camp. But so apparently Nepenthe was made up for ancient Greek. So they probably, when they discovered it in America, they named it after the mythical plant in Greece for the Latin name. So, yeah, that's what it looks like happened. Yeah, the carnivorous plant genus Nepenthes is named after the drug Nepenthe, but the drug doesn't actually exist. So odds are Edgar Allan Poe's narrator was like taking drugs, and he used this to like, you know, to say as a cool reference.
I also noticed there's a lot of purple velvet in this poem.
I noticed that too.
Funereal.
Silken purple curtain.
It's an important color in the Catholic Church, I know, because for like Lent and Advent. So it's like for Lent / Easter, it's definitely like funeral related to death.
I think that that might have come from its use as royalty, as like Jesus is returning and he's the king. There might be more symbolism in that, though.
So purple reflects sorrow and suffering.
Sad. I kind of just figured it was like, since silk velvet purple, I decided this band is rich.
That's definitely part of it.
That's what I just. But it does kind of definitely feed into. It's actually like, isn't purple mix of red and blue?
Yeah.
So like red for passion, blue for depression, and he's in a purple state.
That's cool.
I definitely don't think that's a Poe thought. Why not?
I like it though. Color theory, literary analysis.
Culinary.
Because it's really easy symbolism.
Yeah, I love color theory. It's so fun.
If anything, it's fun, right? Exactly. Look at this depressing cup of coffee. Oh God. Oh no.
My favorite example with color theory is just like look at Star Wars. there's a dark side and a light side, and the good people are all dressed in white, and the bad people are all dressed in black. And that's because,
and then there's the purple side.
Mace Windu, who knows what's up with him? Yeah, it's like night is dark, and you don't know, like, it's scary at night because you can't see anything. And so night became scary, and black became evil. Whereas in the daytime, when things are light and you can see the color white, like white became good because it's safer. So white became the good side, the light side, the holy side, the whatever.
Enlightenment, everything.
Yeah. So it's like, it's totally based on just like nature. Like a lot of it's based on nature, which is really cool. Like red being passion. Like you blush red when you are passionate, whether you're angry or in love or embarrassed, like red. Blood is red. So, you know, if there's violence or anger, blood might happen. So whatever. It's all like nature based. It's all pretty cool.
Absolutely. Like the thing is, when it comes to literary analysis, I really like color theory.
Yeah.
Really, I don't like it that people are like, paint your room blue to be more successful at work. But I really like, in the context, yeah, I hate that shit. But in the context of this, it makes so much sense. It's like intuitive for us to even, like, how would I say this? Like, I don't always think authors necessarily plan out every color in their book that they mention, even though they can. I don't think they necessarily do. But even the fact that they thought of that color, imagine that color as they're writing, has that kind of history, has that kind of context.
Yeah.
There's a reason why he thought of that.
That's like the argument to it, because people will be like, the author didn't think that, you know, to put all these colors in there. And it's like, well, no, maybe they didn't think of it consciously, but they live in the same world we do. And like blue then still represented sadness. So of course they're going to have blue in this scene. You know, red still always represented passion and these big emotions. So of course she's wearing red, you know. It's like, they may not have planned it out piece by piece, but they still did it in the back of their mind. And so it's just like, it's always there. Like the cultural influence is always there.
And people say cultural relativity is bullshit. It's like, nah, dude. It's just so legit. It's so legit when it comes to art. I don't know about anything else. Very legit when it comes to art. And she's like, we were talking about this with my coworker yesterday. How like, I can't prove this. This is something she said, but I believed her. That in certain cultures, when they establish the, you know, full movie business, like for example in Japan, traditionally things are read from right to left, and that's the way their books work. That's mostly how their language used to work, still mostly does. And because of that, when they started making movies, they tend to put the main character, the most impactful character of the scene, towards the right of the scene, while in the West they put it towards the left of the scene. And that became a trope in Japanese movies even to this day. And there's always something slightly awkward about it, and there's a very distinct reason. There are arguments that like their brain works that way, they look for it, blah, 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 whatever it is. Now that trope is established, that importance on this side of the screen. And I feel like that definitely applies to literature in the same exact way.
You know what? I've always used video games as an example, because in a side scroller, you're almost always moving from left to right. But video games are mostly made in Japan. Like Mario, which was the first game to do that, was made in Japan. So maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, it's like reading direction from left to right. But you're right, Japanese.
Is it because maybe they designed it for
the West,
a Western audience with that in mind? Maybe. Not that I know. Maybe.
Could have been. Or maybe they were influenced by Western movies.
Absolutely possible. Absolutely possible.
So I have an important fact about the color purple, which is that it's probably Poe meant it more in the like Judeo-Christian sense, but it is also the purple is also the third eye chakra. It's generally seen as like a mystical color as well. So
for sure,
like, you know, three-eyed raven, something. A little Game of Thrones reference. That Poe.
Oh, I was wondering where that was from.
Yeah, purple could definitely be like mystical, magical. I feel like the purple mage robe has been around for quite a while.
Comment below which bird would be most likely to make you hallucinate.
I like birds.
Like this video if you like birds.
Mm-hmm.
Bird up.
Bird up.
Bird up.
Goals.